Do you want to state your name and your what you do for a living and your political affiliation?
Sure. So my name is Allison Hill, and I am a Democrat. I will say that. I do have some alternating views. I have a criminal justice background. I was a probation officer, worked in for the Denver District Attorney's Office here in Colorado, um, and am right now in the middle of a career change, but that is majority of my background.
And my name's
Go ahead.
My name is Deshawn White, and I'm like Allison. It's funny because I say Democrat, but in this political environment, I don't like to be boxed into that. Do you know what I mean? But I'm sure we'll talk about that. I am from Colorado, but now I live in Texas. And I started off, actually, I didn't know that you had a criminal justice degree because that's what my undergrad is in, criminal justice and criminology. And then my major is educational diagnostician. So I work in the school systems evaluating students to determine if they have a learning disability.
So who did you both vote for in the 2020 election?
Biden.
Not Trump. I voted for Biden.
Have your political views changed at all from since you were younger to now? And do you know like what made those things change?
For me, I would say, like when you're younger, you're usually taking on the affiliation of your parents or whoever you're growing up with. My parents were liberal, Democrat, so I always thought that way. Growing up, you experience different things, you form your own opinions, you branch out, and I developed my own opinions towards, important topics such as like, the LGBTQ community and social, like economic things. So I would say it's definitely changed, just because I grew out of what I was being presented with.
In the same way, both my parents, well, I assume my dad was a Democrat. He really didn't talk politics, but I know my mother is a Democrat. I likewise, like you start off kind of, to be honest, when I first voted, I voted because I knew I was going to vote. Like that was an expectation in my family. You were going to vote. So I voted and I voted Democrat, but I was not very informed on what I was voting on. I'm just going to be honest. And through the years, I always voted, but through the years, I've become more knowledgeable and actually researching, what I'm voting for. And then my views have changed. My views have, like President Obama, how at first he didn't support gay marriage. I didn't either. So, but now I do. And so I definitely have evolved in, growing up and getting more educated, and different experiences have definitely changed my view with respect to different social and political issues.
Can you tell us what your stance on the issues are, like global warming, LGBTQ rights, other political issues?
So for global warming, Deshawn, you could probably say something about what Texas has gone through. I think that is definitely a part of global warming. So we need to do something about that. The thing is like trying to get everybody agree, trying to get Congress understand that it is a thing. It's not this mythical thing that's happening. So I do support any changes that will make a positive impact on global warming. I support LGBTQA rights across the board. As far as gun control, I'm for what we're doing right now. Like I support removing of AR-15s off the streets, those types of things. Coming from my criminal justice background and being surrounded by police officers and those type of people, I have a gun. Okay, so
what
I believe. I know, right? And I love shooting. I love shooting for sport and whatever. As far as taking those things off of the street that are going to be used in, you know, mass shootings, remove them, perfectly fine. I do believe in checking records as far as that's concerned. But me and my husband have guns, and of course no one wants to, like, you know, go against what the Second Amendment says and all of those types of things. But I'm in support of it as long as we're not inhibiting people from that, from having their right to own a weapon. Yeah, those are my big ones.
I'm so up in the air about guns because I don't like guns, but it's because I'm not comfortable with guns because I didn't grow up around guns and I'm not knowledgeable about guns. Mm-hmm. But here in Texas, you have a gun. Everybody has a gun.
Right.
I mean, people that I never even thought would have a gun have guns here. Like everyone has a gun in Texas. And they are very adamant that it's their right and there is nothing that you're going to do to change their mind about that. And I don't have a problem with people having guns. I do have a problem with the fact that we regulate everything else in this world. Driving, when you can smoke, when you can have alcohol, but you don't think we should regulate guns. Like, it just really, I don't understand it. And the argument that I get a lot here about, you know, the AK-47s or, I hope I said that right, 57.
Yeah, it's right. Yeah. You got it, it's fine.
Is that they use them to control, like, on a farm, like hogs, I guess they said, are very aggressive. And so they use that. And I was like, but if you go back through the centuries, I'm sure they didn't have AK-47s when they were farming. Like, I don't understand it. But trying to talk to someone here about guns, no.
Uphill battle, huh?
Right. It's just, yeah. And then Texas you know, you can kill somebody over your property, and I have a problem with that. Like, there's some moral issues that come in there. Like, I feel like you can replace a car, but you can't replace a life. So that gets into a whole nother issue. With the LGBTQ, my son is whispering to tell me what it is. But my views are, I don't think that anyone should ever be killed because of who they love. I don't believe that you know, you should stop someone from loving who they love. But I am a little bit more conservative when it goes past just the LGBT. When it gets into like the pansexuals and the fluidity or fluid sexuality and they and them, and you start to lose me. You really do, because I'm not sure, I don't understand it when it comes to that there. Now, do I say do what you do? Would I ever stop somebody? No. But am I embracing that? No, not right now, because I don't firmly understand it. And I honestly feel like some of it is a trend. And so I have a problem with, I don't want kids to make such an important choice, but is it a choice? That's the other debate. If it's a trend. So I'm still very much growing in that area. And then what was the other one?
Global warming. Global warming.
Global warming. Oh, for global warming, I don't understand why we now debate facts. Like, now you can't. We're not debating global warming. We're debating does it even exist? And so I'm just so thrown off by that conversation. Like, we at least used to acknowledge that, yes, it is happening. Some people said it's happening faster, it's happening because of this reason or this reason. Now we have to debate whether it actually exists. And that's exhausting.
Mm-hmm.
So
sure.
I think it's funny because I align with you on both on some, but not on all. Because for guns, I am in the camp of people that believe that guns shouldn't have even been in America in the first place. Like, we shouldn't have. We should be like other countries, like in Europe, where only the police have guns. But also, because I'm Black, I don't trust the police to police correctly.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just, I know we can't take all of the guns out of America because they're so deep within our society. So I am for like gun regulation and stuff. And Deshaun, what you said about LGBTQ rights, and all the terms that you can't really wrap your head around. I don't want to age you, but my mom is also.
Oh, I'm old.
I'm old.
I mean, I'm good. I feel like aging is good. Go ahead. Like wine.
Because the other day I was trying to explain to her what the difference between non-binary gender and gender fluidity is. And she was like, because there's so many genders and gender identities that I still don't understand. And it's going to be harder for somebody who is older and can't comprehend the trend changing to understand that as well. And also there, like you said, some of it is a trend. And I do believe that if you want to transition, like if you're transgender, you should wait until you're at least 18 so you can actually know what you want, because that's when your brain kind of fully comprehends, is at 18. So I just want to know if you think Biden aligned with not all or most of the viewpoints that you discussed.
Nope.
Well, she's saying nope, then I guess kind of for mine. I mean, he isn't supportive like the LGBTQ like movement and their rights. As far as like gun reform, I think he's kind of riding the middle line with that. Like he wants a voluntary buyback program. I support that. That's great. The background checks, he's in favor of universal background checks. That's great. And then what I appreciated that he wants to enforce is doing the National Firearm Registry so that we know where everything is. I mean, that's half the battle, like figuring out what's out there and where it is, who has it, and then keeping track of it from there. So as far as those things, I think he's riding the line, but I have faith that he will, do what needs to be done and do it correctly.
I think he's riding the line on a lot of things. And I think that he's doing that purposefully. My own opinion is because he's trying to unite people. And so he doesn't want to be too far left. He doesn't want to be too far right. He's going to stay right in the middle. And I get it. I mean, I do understand that, because this is 4 years, but we know when they're already gearing up for 2024. And so I think he's really trying to make sure that he speaks to some of the topics that we need to speak to, but I don't think he's going to buck anything at this point, because I really think the people who voted for him just because he wasn't Trump, I think he's trying to pull them over so they don't go back and vote for Trump again. And that's just, I don't have anything, research that says that. It's just my gut feeling from the way he's approaching things. So I don't think that we are going to see a lot of, pushback with that. The other issue that he's doing right now, that he's pursuing right now with minimum wage, I don't agree with that. And that's like the main thing that he's doing that I really don't agree with. The rest of it, I'm okay with him kind of right in the middle, as Allison said.
Can you, what do you think about the minimum wage? Can you speak more about that? I'm just curious, other viewpoints.
So with the minimum wage debate, and this, I go back and forth because I think that people should have a livable wage. I absolutely believe that. But what scares me is the whole sense of bringing people to a livable minimum wage and then thinking that that's going to bring other people up, because companies are going to see, well, if, not to demean, but like if a janitor can make $15 an hour, then, I come to you and I say, well, I'm an IT tech. I should be making $37 per hour. I don't know that companies are going to really do that. I feel like the way that companies have done lately is they're just going to find a way to undercut and bring people down.
They're always going to want to do the minimum.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, gotcha.
And that's where that concerns me. But there's also, and I don't know that this is based in facts more than than just what I've always heard, is that it's that argument of, aren't there some jobs that really are not worth paying that amount? And then those are entry-level jobs. And so if we make entry-level jobs, if we bring them up to a certain level, are they still entry-level? And what makes you want to do better then? Because now if you can live off of your entry-level or minimum wage job, what makes you want to do more?
Okay.
So that's always, from an educator point of view, that always concerns me.
Gotcha. Kimberly, do you have an opinion on that?
I think I haven't really researched it, so I don't really have a strong opinion on it, but I do believe that there should be higher minimum wage for people who can't afford to go into higher education and actually educate themselves to get better jobs so they can get better wage. So that's where I stand on that.
What about trades though? Because back in the day, that was our bread and butter for African-American people, was trades. You know, you didn't necessarily have to go to college, because you could become an electrician or a plumber or a welder, and you can make really good money. You still can. So why aren't we, well, that's a whole different push for education and bringing back vocational training and so forth. But that kind of plays into that's why minimum wage is it's so many facets to it, and sometimes I go, well, of course people should make a minimum wage. They shouldn't have to, to work 4 jobs to feed their family. But then I go, if you bring people up to $15 an hour, I mean, there's some people with degrees who are making $15 per hour.
Right.
How does that look? I don't know. That's an interesting.
Have a whole separate conversation just on that.
Right.
And Tia said that how many, so I can't read. Women and minorities are most of the people who keep entry-level jobs. So how do we get them out of poverty?
For me, that's where I see the minimum wage being raised. Like, you just have to. I mean, you have people, they have kids. I mean, if you really want to get into like the snowball effect of this, you have a child, you have to pay for daycare. Like, sometimes it's better. The daycare is so expensive, you might as well stay home. Like, you have to find some type of balance in the wage that they're making so that they can take care of what they need to take care of, and then start looking towards the future and start looking towards bigger and greater things. And it's, I mean, I think that it's detrimental to be poor at this point. Like, you have to be making a livable wage. You need to be able to pay your rent and put food on the table, and then you can start thinking about the other stuff. So that's just from my perspective. So I support the raise of the minimum wage, just because I think overall it's going to lead to something bigger and greater for our minority communities.
And for me, raising the minimum wage is only going to have a surface effect, because being poor is a mindset. And now, I don't mean that's not to blame, but it definitely is a mindset that you get into. This is how it looks. This is how life looks. This is how life works. And the only way you break that is through education. So you have to educate people out of, there's better choices that you can make for food that still are, it's expensive. Living in the hood and going to the convenience store, those are some of the most pricey stores around. You know what I mean? But really educating people as far as, what do we need to do with credit? What do we need to, well, you're not even talking about credit when you're poor, but what do we need to do to bring ourselves up, other than just looking at this minimum wage going up? Like, how can we help each other? How can we educate each other? How can we have better schools? Because it really, to me, that key is education. It's not in raising the minimum wage, it is changing the mindset. Because even when you look at the people who are, like, people we look to as far as our leaders in politics and even athletes and celebrities and so forth, they all started off, not all, but a lot of them started off poor. And when you hear their stories, It was a person, it was a coach, it was an educational experience that got them out of that. And so how do we pour that in? How do we do more? And there are so many people doing more. Like, look at LeBron, what he's doing. That's how we lift people out of poverty. I do think they have to have a livable wage, but how many people, if we were to survey, how many people, what did you do with your stimulus check? Did you put it in the bank? Did you go buy new tennis shoes? Did you go buy a new car? You know, like, I really question, when I sit back and look at the stimulus money, I know people who should have, you know, put money back or paid ahead on rent, who went and bought a new car, or went and bought J's, or went and bought something that they had no business doing. Because when are we going to get this much money again? Is the mindset, you know? And so then it becomes, what are we really doing? Are we helping? Because there's some people who would help, absolutely. Some people who couldn't make rent, some people, but then there's some people who just didn't do what they were supposed to do with it. And they're never going to do what they're supposed to do with it unless their mindset changes.
I agree with that. I actually like that point. I agree with that, because I do know quite a few people that I'm like, hey, you've been broke for a minute, and then they got their like stimulus check and just did whatever with it. So yeah, but I'm saying for those people that aren't that, I think it would be nice for them to be able to have a chance to get ahead, even if it's making a few more dollars an hour.
Absolutely.
But I do agree with what you said.
Absolutely.
You talked about educating the Black community so they would learn how to do better, and putting more time into the education system. And that's in the Black Lives Matter movement this summer. They also talked about defunding the police. Are you for defunding the police?
Ooh, Deshaun, you take that one. Hold on.
I am for another bird other than defunding, because nobody knows what that means. They assume we're saying take millions of dollars away from the police and put them over here. When Cuomo in New York, when they said, oh, he defunded the police, he didn't take a single penny from the police. All he did was reorganize. He took the police officers that were being paid by the city, and he put them and made them be paid by the school district. So nothing was defunded. So I just hate the word defunding, because nobody knows what it means. And it's been given a negative connotation, so you can't get past the word to get to the actual issue. I don't know what word we need to use, but I am all for my big thing is mental health. We do not do a good job with mental health.
Yes.
It is why we have such a high homeless population. It is why we have, I mean, it's a whole different topic, but I am for better training of the police. I am for pouring money into social workers, being part of the police force and being trained as police, but they are social workers. So when there is a call and we have a person who's, you know, they've been off their meds, it goes to that section. So they go in. So I'm into reallocating the money, but not taking the money away, which isn't what defunding means, but it sounds like that's what it means.
So when all of this was going on this summer, I was still very intertwined in the criminal justice field and all of that. A lot of the panic from people that were being like, oh my God, defund, they're going to defund us, whatever, was, wait, so now we won't have the resources to do our job. That was what everyone was thinking. I think the appropriate word is definitely to reallocate funds and place them into people that can help with mental health. And one thing that I can say for sure is that the amount of arrests and police involved, like shootings or, you know, fights or whatever in Denver has significantly gone down, because we have placed victim advocates on patrol with police officers. So those people are bringing that mental health aspect to whatever situation and able to de-escalate where police officers can't or may struggle. So I think that there's something to be said about putting that money towards getting the right people in front of the community and saying, we're here to help. We're not here to, like, you know, stir up more crap, you know? So that's kind of my view on that. I just lost my train of thought on something else I was going to say regarding it.
But where's the PR on that? Like, how come we don't hear that story? Where's the PR on that? Like, why isn't anyone telling those stories so that we know what's going on?
And that's a really great question, because I think I actually shot it over to Tia when I like saw it, because the numbers have significantly dropped in Denver. Like, just, and I have no idea why the whole world doesn't know. So
if I didn't know.
Yeah.
I didn't know.
Yeah.
Because I'm for more of taking money out of the police system and putting it in other sectors like education. Because there are things that police have, like rubber bullets and like tear gas and things that are really kind of unnecessary for them to be using as police officers for like the population that they're policing. But also I think that the word defund has also been taken out of context and used against the Democratic Party. Because have you seen those commercials when Trump was running for president? It was that old white lady getting her house broken into, and then she was calling the police, and they were like, the police is defunded. Bye. I'm like, that's not what that means at all.
That's not what happened. Yeah.
But I think they use the word defund as more of like a way to harm the Democratic Party rather than to educate on what
it's like destabilize. It's they're making it synonymous with destabilize, like we're trying to take away and they won't be able to do their job, which nobody said we don't want police officers to be able to do their job, you know, but we do want to redefine what their job is, because it's lost its way.
Right. I remember what I was going to say as far as reallocating funds within the police department. I thought it would be a great idea, because I don't know if you guys know this, but majority of the time a police like academy is like 6 months, 9 months, if you're like really getting jazzy with it, okay? But they don't have any additional training on top of that. Like only in the last, well, for Colorado, only in the last maybe 5-6 years have they even made it a requirement to have an undergrad degree, you know? So it's like offering them things in that boot camp or whatever that will help them better do their jobs. Like they don't have any idea how to deal with mentally unstable people or how to de-escalate. Like they just don't know. And majority of the time it's like a 1-hour training in passing, maybe, you know, every 6 months during their tenure. So it's like maybe reallocating those types of funds that we're using for rubber bullets and other, you know, other weird things that they have to better educate them and prepare them to be out on the street dealing with the community on a day-to-day basis.
Oh, they know how to de-escalate sometimes. Sometimes they don't.
When it's convenient.
Well, it's like selective de-escalation.
Right.
And you guys talked about before Biden kind of riding the line to try to appeal to both Democrat and Republican Party. Do you think that's a good thing that he's riding the line, or do you think it's a bad thing?
For right now, coming off of the Trump presidency, I get it. I totally get it. Because if anybody's being completely honest, anybody that's, you know, a Democrat or has any type of soul will know that coming off of what we just experienced, like the bigotedness, the ignorance, like all of that, coming off of that, Biden is going to look like a dream to anyone. I think that him riding the line has more to do with pulling everybody together because we were so divided.
Yeah.
And he's like, okay, you know what? I've wrote the line like through all of my debates and like all these, but now it's time to, you know, come to the table. Like, what are you going to do? How do you feel? And we'll all be able to see that. I think that he's doing the best that he can. And I mean, only time will tell which way he ends up leaning. But ultimately, unifying the people is, I think, his main goal. And I think he's doing that.
Mm-hmm. I absolutely agree with that. sometimes I play devil's advocate, and I think if I was a 70-year-old white lady in rural Ohio and I saw what has happened in the last 8 years, would I be extremely scared? And I might, if I was, because you're thinking, perhaps low education, and all you're seeing is, you see an African-American president, okay, but then you see, gay and lesbians get rights, and you see the dreamers get rights, and then you hear that white people are becoming the minority in numbers, not power, and you start to see all this stuff. And of course, then you have, these parties feeding into that, of course. Would I be scared? I guess I might be, and so even though it's so silly to me, I still think the one thing that people say is that we stopped letting conservative people or Republicans have a voice, which is ridiculous. But I do feel like we did some of that. We're not trying to hear that anymore. And what happens when you do that to a kid? Like they still have an opinion and a thought. It's just they no longer talk to you about it, and they go do whatever behind the scenes and so forth. And I feel like we did some of that, where they lost the ability to communicate that because we changed so fast. But did we really change fast? Like it's been hundreds of years. But I think to white America, it might have felt like it's a fast change. And so I think Biden is just trying to kind of toe the line right now, and kind of slow and steady. And he's going to make his mark in some areas, but it's just going to be slow and steady right now, which, brings back stability. So I'm in support of that.
I also wanted to add that, going along with the slow and steady, at first I was taken aback by how much he has accomplished in I don't know, not even 30 days. He's really taken the bull by the horns in that aspect, because he's accomplished what most presidents would say, this is my first 100 days. And he did it in 10 to 12. Okay. So he came out blazing, he knew what things needed his attention immediately. And I appreciate that.
But did he see, and this is where I don't, was some of it just undoing what had been done?
So some of it was, so when we're talking about I'm trying to think of
the pipeline. Like the
pipeline. Yes, the pipeline.
Undoing,
Yep, he came out with that.
And the Paris climate.
The Paris climate. There was one other big one that I was like, thank God. Hold on. I can't think of it.
How transgender people can be in the military now, I think.
Yes, and the sports thing and all of that. Yep, that was the other one.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, he came out guns blazing. Time will tell once again. I mean, it hasn't even been 100 days yet, but he's working for sure.
That's true.
Initially, why did you vote for Biden?
I voted for Biden because, other than being kind of a household name that provided comfort coming off the Obama administration, majority of what I knew about him, I knew back in 2008 when Obama was elected, because then I was like, oh God, who's this vice president dude? So, so I think that the reason that it was an easy, a not so difficult choice for me was because majority of his views aligned with mine. And I knew that coming off of the Obama administration. So really it's just the line going through the two. And I was like, okay, Trump's got to go. What are my options? He's going to be the best bet. And Kamala helped too, just a side note.
So I voted for Biden because I don't want to say it. Well, I mean, if your options are Trump and Biden, then your option is Biden. Biden doesn't excite me. I'm going to be honest. He doesn't. And I don't know that I have to be excited, but in today's world, we do want some excitement. But Biden, they criticize him because he is very much your uncle at the barbecue who you kind of sit and talk to for a minute. And he kind of talks slow and he has those old stories and you just love it, uncle.
He was getting scary for a minute.
But he's not out there doing the electric slide or anything. Like he's just, Uncle Joe. And so, I mean, like I said, there were a lot of people who said they voted for him because he wasn't Trump, but they weren't necessarily a fan of Biden. I did vote for him because he was not Trump. And I'm not a fan of Biden. Like I said, he just doesn't excite me. And I don't know why. And I don't know that my politicians need to excite me, but I guess I'm really watching him to see what his legacy is going to be, if you will. So I'm still trying to figure out, where are you going to go with all this? Because to be honest, I kind of mush him in with President Obama as far as their policies and views. And I don't know. I want him to separate himself out a little bit so I know exactly who he is. You know what I'm saying? So I don't really know what excites me about Biden. Like if it would have been, I guess no, because I always, even during the primaries, I still voted for Biden. Mm-hmm. Like I didn't vote for Bernie. I didn't vote for, I can't remember the long list of people now, but I always, but during the primaries, the reason I voted for Biden is because I felt he had the best chance of beating Trump. It wasn't because I thought he was the best candidate, to be honest, if I'm being completely honest.
I agree with that part too. There were some times where I was like, uh-oh, like what's happening? Like as far as like his background, like I know he spent like forever in the Senate. One of the things I really had to work hard to push past was the crime bill in 1994 and his support of that and his openness of that. And I was like, you don't understand like the mass incarceration of African-American people that has happened since then based off that. It was just something I had to really work hard to move past with him.
Right.
But yeah, at the end of the day, he had the best chance in comparison with everybody else. And I didn't want there to be any wavering or doubt that Trump would be reelected.
Right. And for Kamala, it didn't, they tried to like tear her down because they said, she prosecuted African-American men and da-da-da-da-da. That never bothered me because I'm like, she was a prosecutor.
Yes, that was her job.
Right. That was always such a weird argument to me because she's a prosecutor. She's going to prosecute people. And it's true. There probably was an overrepresentation of her prosecuting minorities, African-American men and so forth, but that's our system. Like that isn't her. That is the system she works in. So that was never a deterrent for me. With respect to them trying to say about her. And it was nice to see a woman,
Yes, for sure.
Absolutely, because we definitely need to be represented. So
another thing that I can say about the Biden presidency is the amount of different people from different walks of life that he's brought up and put at the forefront. I love it.
Right.
I love it. Representation matters through and through, and he gets that.
I was reading a comment on like some, topic, and it said, what does diversity really do? Mm-hmm. And I was like, if you're still asking that question, I have to start with you.
Right.
Because diversity of thought, when you just have all the same people in a room and they're all saying the same thing, where is the growth?
Right.
Where is my friends challenge each other. We all don't think the same. We will have knockout, drag out fights about different things and then, crack jokes the next minute. I need that to grow. We all need that to grow. So, the fact that Biden is exposing, it shouldn't even be a conversation now. Mm-hmm. It should just be like I saw Simone, is it Simone Biles? What's Simone's last name?
Biles?
Thank you. I saw a perfect comment. She and you guys have to help me. Whatever she did, where she just like beat everyone. Mm-hmm. And it didn't say the first African American woman to do it. It didn't say the first woman to do it. It said the first American to do it. And we should be at a place where we're just picking people and we're not even cognizant of their race or whatever, just because we know that's the best person. But we know we're so far from that because we're still having conversations about it.
Right.
So, but that is, I do love that he's doing that, and we need to normalize that. So that is definitely a highlight of his presidency so far. I agree, Allison.
I think for me, I wanted to vote for Bernie, like other people around my age, because of his trying to have free college education or less expensive college education, primarily. And I also voted for Biden because he's the only one that's going to make it. Nobody else on the Democratic list is probably going to make it. Like Kamala Harris ran, she probably wasn't going to make it. Other people. So it was just like, we just need to get Trump out of here. We just need to do whatever we can to get him out of here. And the sad thing is, I didn't know anything about him other than he was a Democrat and he worked for Obama. I didn't know about him being in the Senate until after I voted for him for president, which is sad. But he also went against desegregation when he worked on the Delaware Newcastle County City Council, and he was working on house reform for the area. And the area was predominantly African American. And at one point he said he was the only white person. He was a lifeguard and he was the only white person at the pool. And that's how he would relate to the Black people. So he was working on the new city council and he wanted to appeal to the white people in the area. And he was like, I don't really want to do this, but we have to do it for the housing, even though it would have hurt African American people. Does what I'm saying make sense?
A little bit, yeah. I'm following.
The housing bill that he was going for would have helped a lot of African American people get into schools after desegregation.
Gotcha.
And then when he was on the Senate, there was a bus bill for also African American students to go to better schools, and he voted against it because he said that he didn't think that would change anything. And he still stood by it, even though after they rejected his opinion, it became one of the biggest bus systems for desegregation in the state. So I wish I knew that before then, but honestly, I believe that if he didn't vote for Kamala Harris after the run of the Black Lives Matter movement, and if he wasn't with Obama, he probably would not be sitting in the presidential seat today. But that's just my own belief. How do you feel about him picking Kamala Harris after the Black Lives Matter movement? Do you think that's a coincidence, or do you think it was a strategy to get more Black voters?
I was surprised. I thought it was going to hurt him. I'm going to be honest. When he did, because I said, oh, he's not going for Kamala. He's not. And we had this debate with my mother, and she was like, I think he might. And I said, no, Mom, because he wants he's going to go with someone white. I was really surprised because I didn't think Joe had it in him. I'm going to be honest. And that did help me say, okay. But I don't know why. I didn't think he was going to. Did you think he was going to, Allison?
So I agree with what you said, because I thought that he was definitely going to go with someone else. And I know that, like, overwhelmingly, if we're looking back on like the votes and everything, Black people showed out in record numbers, Black women showed out in record numbers. I don't think they were thinking that far ahead, honestly. I don't. So I don't think that, I don't think he could have, I don't think it was a calculated move. I think she really has the background and has the things needed to be successful as a VP. I don't know. Now that you brought it up though, my wheels are spinning for sure, but I don't think it was calculated.
I think it's the icing on the cake.
Definitely. Yeah, and I think it's great. I mean, even if it was calculated, I still think we are going to be in a better place ultimately. So
Right. Yeah, I think, people say that all the time, like, you Democrats, you just voted for him because he's a Democrat. Well, you voted for him just because he's a Republican. And if there's any proof, and we're seeing all the stuff that has happened, that tells me more so that Democrats will vote for somebody because they're a Democrat, and Republicans will vote for something because they're Republican. Like, when Republicans try to go after Democrats for that, I'm like, give me a break. You guys do the same thing. You put a guy who was a pedophile, like, you voted for him. Like, let's not talk about that. So I agree with you, Allison. I don't think people knew all the ins and outs. Some people just said Biden, not Trump. Right. Kamala's African-American woman. They didn't even recognize the Asian part. And they said, we're voting for her. And to be honest, that's okay. Because if you really think that all of Trump supporters understand what he stands for and he understands his political platform. Right. Like the majority of voters are not educated on the issues. Let's just be honest. I don't know all the issues. Like, the majority of us go to the polls and we vote for our party. And that's just what it is. We vote for people who look like us. I have gone to the poll and picked a name because I thought it was a Black name.
Oh, no, you didn't.
Would I ever say that in front of anybody else? No. But when it comes to the judges, I'm like, I don't know the judges, but Troy Jackson sounds like a Black man. And I'm going to
Stop it.
Now, do I also make sure that I'm educated on my my judges and the mayors and the governors? And yes, I'm doing better with that. And I think people, with what's going on now, I think people are starting to educate themselves and being able to speak to some issues, because there's so many issues. Like, I didn't even realize there was a Democratic platform that you could go and see what the party stands for. Yes. So, and I remember Republicans. Yeah.
Right. And I remember doing that, like, okay, so this is like a little bit of a cheesy story, but so Obama was the first president that I voted for. So I was like super excited to be able to vote. And I was like, I'm gonna read on all the things. I'm gonna know everything back and forth. Like, it's gonna be great. So, I mean, I have kept that throughout. Like, I mean, I go deep, like, even for local stuff. I'm like reading up on this person's education, reading up on their, like, affiliation and what happens next and like all this stuff. And I think that, like, more people are starting to get excited about it, like, about being knowledgeable and being able to back what they're voting for. So I think there's something to be said for that, because I definitely, every single time, I'm like, okay, what's this person do? Like, right.
And young people, because President Obama got young people mobilized. And I think that's something that I'm so proud of young people. Like, we talk about, them being on their feet, you guys being on your phone all the time, and all of that, and the Snapchat and I was gonna say MySpace. Ooh, okay, that was before my time.
Oh, wow, that was a throwback. You still got a MySpace, Deshawn?
I did not have MySpace, but we talk about that. But what young people have done that I think is amazing is that, and this is ingrained in them now, they're political. Mm-hmm. Like, they're political, and they, like my son, they talk about politics. I didn't talk to my friends about politics. I did not. And I went to the White House on a U.S. I was on the bicentennial team, and I knew, like, I could debate bicentennial issues, but I never talked to my friends about it. Where he talks to his friends about Trump. So that's something that I think that excitement was President Obama. I don't think young people are excited about Biden is the problem. But I'm hoping that they still will energize the party, and get us moving in the right direction. So, yeah.
Because I was the same way as you, Deshawn, where I was just like, I kind of looked up the people in the party just to see if they're a Democrat, but then after that I stopped. So even on the ballot when I voted for Biden, I'm like, are they Democrat? Yes. Is this Democrat? Yes. Right. And I remember I went to a Christian school and everybody was very conservative and Republican. And I was like, one of the boys told me, we were talking about politics, and he was like, the only reason why you like Obama is because he's Black. And I'm like, no, that's not true. But at the time, that was really the only reason what I knew Obama for, was being a Black Democrat man. Mm-hmm. So I think it's good now that we can educate ourselves more, because politics kind of controls our lives more than it did before. It seemed like kind of on the back burner before, but now it's like really in our face, like taxes, if we increase taxes and other things.
That's so true. Because you would see that meme going around saying it doesn't matter who gets it doesn't matter who's elected. Did you guys see that when it was like, well, there's one thing that says religion, so it doesn't matter who's elected, God's in control. And I was like, ooh, hold on. God can only do so much now,
right.
You know? And then there's the one that said it doesn't matter who's elected, we still get screwed over, or I still have to handle my business. Yes, that's true, but it impacts everything that has to do with you handling your business. And that's like the struggle to get people to understand politics is in your life, whether you want to admit it or not. You can be an active participant if whether or not you want to be, but you are still impacted by everything that is going on right now. And people sometimes see it as so far removed from their life. And I guess if you're poor and you're struggling, you don't understand, you know, like you kind of feel disenfranchised. So you don't feel like, you know, what do I care who's the president? My life still looks the same, you know? And so that's where that goes back to that minimum wage and that mindset. What is that increase in the minimum wage if you still feel like I don't have opportunity? You know what I mean? Like if you feel like, okay, now I make $15 per hour, but I'm still in the same house. I'm still in the same neighborhood. My kids' school is still jacked up. You know what I mean? Like it's a mindset to me, and that's politics, and that's understanding, and that's getting our people more involved and educating ourselves so that we're not picking a name based on it sounds like a Black man. Now we're actually doing some research. That's the struggle, and that's what excites me because young people are doing that. I don't know that Biden's plugged into young people though.
I know you voted for Biden, but did you think that he was going to win the presidency?
I will say for a minute I was holding my breath. I was a little scared, but ultimately I thought he was going to take it for sure, just because of like the voter turnout. I mean, even with like the stuff happening at the polls and people not being able to have access to like, you know, sending in their votes and all this stuff. I think I had faith that he was going to take it for sure.
I was scared. I really was scared because Trump winning last time, that blew my mind. Like that was hard to swallow. I was like, Hillary lost? Like, it took me days to really feel like, did she really lose to Trump? Like it blew my mind. So I couldn't be hurt like that again. I couldn't take it. I was like, until they say it, I really was like, I have to sit back and see. Because Georgia, I was just like, oh my gosh, is Georgia gonna do it? Is Georgia gonna do it? You know, all eyes were on Georgia. And yeah, it was just to the last minute. Until I heard it, I was like, I'm not gonna even get happy.
Also, I don't remember any other like presidency election being drawn out as much as this one. Like, I mean, it was like days, and I was like, I don't remember it being like that. So that's what I mean by I was like holding my breath, because I was like, why don't we have an answer yet? Like, I don't understand.
Right.
Like, what's taking so long? I just don't remember past presidencies being like that. But
you would stay up late, like maybe
right,
you know,
and then you'd have an answer in the morning.
Yeah.
Like you could have stayed up 4 days and you still would not have had an answer. Like it was painful.
Yeah.
It's especially because we're in a pandemic and most Democrats turn in mail-in votes, because I also did the same thing as well. So that's why I was drawn out for 4 days, because each state has different regulations, because some states can count before the elections, some states can count during, some states have to count after all the other votes are in. So at the beginning, I don't know if you all saw it too, but it was more leaning Republican, because all of the most of the Republicans voted in person, and they counted those first. So and then at the end, it turned and switched, and it was all Democrats. So when I was seeing that, I was like, "Ooh, is he gonna win?" But I was on that. I had the app open to see where the states were, how many electoral votes. I was watching MSNBC.
I was refreshing. I just kept refreshing. I was like, come on. And it would change by like one number. I was like, come on, man.
So true. And I was like, okay, let me subtract. What does he need?
I honestly didn't think that Georgia was going to, well, I did. I had hope, but I didn't think Georgia was going to turn, because this is the first time in like over 20 years that Georgia has voted blue, which I was surprised about. And then in the special votes, we did it again. And I was like, wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know we could turn out this hard. Yeah. How'd you feel about Georgia turning blue and twice for the presidency and the special election?
What is her name? What is her name? I can't believe I forgot her name.
Stacey Abrams.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
That's all. That wasn't a Biden win to me. That was Stacey Abrams.
Yeah.
And that story right there, that means the world to me. That just shows her story with linked to Georgia. That's so inspiring she could have easily said, you know what, they robbed me, I'm done. She took that and wow. I mean, I can't even say the words. That story is so inspiring. What she did and how she handled herself makes me proud to be a Black woman, because she did that.
I agree. Actually, wouldn't say anything else after that. Yes,
right.
I agree.
She was so humble about it. Like, she wasn't in your face, this is what, none of that.
Yep.
She
put her head down and handled business, and it was great.
And that's what all of us should do when life throws something like that at us.
What do you think? What should Biden do for Black people and minority people in his presidency? Or what would you like to see from him during his presidency?
That's a good one.
That's a lot. That is a very good question.
I think a good start would be working on prison reform. I think that would, prison reform, the amount of marijuana cases from like decades ago where people are still serving time, like, let's stop it if we're discussing whether to legalize marijuana in states. That's a good start. And I can tell you from actually seeing it, there are quite a few African Americans still in prison and serving jail time or whatever for those types of offenses. I think that would be a good start for him, to start with prison reform and those types of things first.
That would have not been my answer, but now that you talk about it, that is where our talent is. Mm-hmm. That is where our talent is, and that's where our dads are. Yep. That would have such a huge impact on the Black community. I didn't even think about that, but that is absolutely true. If he would start with one of the topics, with prison reform, because that has dismantled the Black family, and it has it's had such an impact. Our Black men not being present and not being able to reach their full potential because we're snatching them up in their 20s. Just imagine all that talent and all that wasted, those are your leaders in there. Because you see it, because people come out of prison and they're amazing. They were amazing when they went in. We just didn't ever plug into that. That's definitely something. That's good, Allison. I think that's definitely where he should focus a lot of energy and attention. Because that's the theme this year, is the Black family. Whose theme is that?
I don't know.
Oh, Black History Month theme. I didn't realize they had things, but this year it is the Black family. And that speaks directly to that.
Do you think that if Joe Biden runs again, would you vote for him for president again, or would you vote for somebody newer and fresher?
So this is a loaded question because it depends on who he's going up against. Now, see, if Kamala came out and was like, I'm running for president, I mean, I think she'd have my vote because I've already done all the research. I already have all the things. It'd be easy to vote for her. If it were anyone else, I mean, we have to wait and see. And I think a lot of that would be based on what he actually gets accomplished during his pregnancy. Lord Jesus, during his presidency. It has a lot to do with that. So I'm still waiting to see how things are going to shake out. But if he were going up against Kamala next or something like that, she would definitely have my vote.
Yeah, I think I have to see the same thing. I would have to see who he's running against and what he does. I think I would love to see him get back in his second term because, second term is when you do whatever you want to do.
Like show up.
Then I would think he would, right. So I think he has more in him than we're seeing. And it would be very interesting to see, how Buck Wild Joe goes. So.
I think that concludes the end of our talk. Thank you so much for coming in and sharing your personal experiences and about Biden and being a Black woman in America.
Oh,
thank you for being. You're our future. You gotta fix all this stuff that we messed up.
I'll try.
Because we messed it up.